It is a Wellness Day and we continue and we're still chatting all things about bodies and body imaging. It is Women's Month and we continue to celebrate your queens and we seek to empower you. But of course, the body image conversation is not just one for women, but also for our male counterparts as well. I'd like us to welcome our contributor, that is Simone Momplé, our resident counselor. Hey Simone, how are you doing?
Hey Khanya, I'm doing well. How are you?
I am so well. I'm well. I think let's just jump into the conversation. We are talking about body image. You know what? How we perceive ourselves. How the world perceives us. And all the kind of imaging that we are taking in that either highlights and pronounces our imperfections, making us feel some type of way. So where do we start the conversation?
Yeah, body image is quite a big topic at the moment. I think a lot all over social media as well. But I want to highlight what it actually means. Body image actually refers to your own emotional attitudes, your own beliefs, and your own perceptions of your own body. So it's not necessarily coming from the outside. And it's quite weird because the experts actually call it the complex emotional experience. So it's actually laying a lot in our emotions and how we feel about ourselves more than how we actually look. So I think that's a very good thing to distinguish as we are talking about body image. It's not actually about how we look, but more about how we feel and how we take in what other people say about us and how we put that within our own image of ourselves as well.
So what you are then saying, Simone, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that even though we're saying we use the terms body image, and so it seems like it's something that is a visual thing, it is actually more an emotional basis of which then we see ourselves, and thus, because that is the foundation, everything that happens around us moves from that point of which we see ourselves and how we feel about ourselves.
Yes, definitely. So what you actually believe about yourself, this is something that maybe a belief is kind of a thought that you keep thinking, right? So that's how we form our beliefs. So if you're constantly going to think that I don't like a specific part of my body and it's always just doing this thing that I don't like, you're constantly telling yourself that every time you look in the mirror or every time you put on a specific outfit, you're going to believe that about yourself one day, and it's just going to sit within your own perception of how you see yourself. And then how you feel about yourself will show through that. You get sometimes we feel very self-conscious about a specific part and we're always covering it up or we're always doing something to protect ourselves so that nobody sees it or that we kind of feel okay about it. And and it's also got to do with how you sense and control this your body and how you move as well. So different things that you do in how you walk or how you sit, that also shows like how you feel about yourself and the beliefs that you might have.
If you've just joined us, welcome to the Only Date That Matters, the lunch with Khanya. It is Wellness Day and we continue with our wellness conversations, and today we're talking body image, or rather I guess it's body emotion, from what our resident counselor and guest Simone Momplé is sharing with us with regards to how we view ourselves. Now Simone, of course, we live in a time where social media is prevalent. Like not a day goes by without us living on social media, connecting with social media in one way or another. Now, there are some, a lot of campaigns that are starting to come up that are saying, listen, what we've been consuming over the years about this perfection, it is not true, because we know that there's so many apps and things that people are using for magazines, TV, etc., the things that we see. Those campaigns are happening, but what and how can we deal with it in real life, in our personal capacities? And basically to clarify to our brains that what we are seeing, even though we're seeing a lot of it, that it's not real. that the true body of a female who's had a child is not going to be what we're going to see in a magazine when they say, 3 kids later and, they've been airbrushed and everything. That they, our bodies are different, but there will be, of course, those war scars, so to speak, that say that this is what you've done, those badges of honor, whether they come in stretch marks, in slightly being bigger, there's different ways.
Yes, I think that while we are browsing on social media, we have to do it in a conscious way to understand that what I'm seeing is not all reality, and it doesn't also depict how I should feel about myself as well. So there is a lot to take in terms of exercise regimes, and also, as you're mentioning, how a woman is supposed to look, or a man is supposed to look when they've experienced something, like you're saying, after giving birth, for example. But then we look at ourselves and we go, I don't look like that. Or that's not how my body is, and what's wrong with me? Why can't I look like that? Why can't things be easier for me? But you've got to understand that even though we have those ideals, even the concepts of being pear-shaped, and I'm not even sure what the other options are there, but there isn't a box for you to fit in. There aren't a pear-shaped body. That's more like for science. It's not necessarily how you are supposed to look. So how you look, as many people as there are in the world, that's how many body types there are. That's what I believe. So how do we accept more about what is happening with our own bodies, and not looking to the outside to compare ourselves, because that is where the negative body imaging comes in. When we compare ourselves to others, when we become ashamed or embarrassed about certain things about our bodies, we lack confidence, we feel uncomfortable, we feel awkward. Now, if we become aware that while I'm looking and scrolling through these things, I'm starting to feel a lack of confidence or feel awkward or whatever it is, be aware of those emotions, and then consciously understand that that's not how it's supposed to be, and move towards a more positive body image, which we can talk about as well.
All right, it's 17 minutes past the hour, 2 o'clock. We're going to have some Ed Sheeran coming through just to help us mull that over and take and absorb what our resident counselor Simone Momplé is sharing with us. We're talking body image, body emotions, and how we see ourselves. When we come back, we'll take a look at how we can accept ourselves, things that we can do to help accept ourselves, and also understanding that, well, there's about 7 billion people in the world. That means there are 7 billion body types. It's the only date that matters. Lunch with yours truly, Khanya and Sosibo, here to serve you beats of pleasure, simple, smooth, and saucy. Before we went to our beats of pleasure, how do we find love where we are when it comes to our bodies?
When it comes to ourselves, accepting certain aspects of who we are, it has to come from appreciating your body as a whole. I think just having a functioning body, focusing on the things that are working for you, focusing on the fact that you have the breathing and that you don't have to think about specific functionings in your body. Look at the things that are actually really doing well and things that you really love about yourself. I think that that's where we need to start, so that the other things that we are a bit insecure about, it won't necessarily fall away, but we'll start looking at it differently and saying, okay, I actually do appreciate the way that part of my body just, flows. And that's sort of how I think we need to start working, is first focusing on what we love, what we really appreciate about our bodies, and then we move to the rest of the areas that we feel like can have some work.
Now, Simone, how do we balance this? I know that we are running out of time, but how do you balance? Because also there's when we talk about wellness and we talk about exercising, somebody will look and see somebody who's been exercising or going to a gym, every now and then, or just doing something, and their body responds in a different way. As you mentioned, 7 billion bodies, 7 billion body types. And then they start putting pressure on themselves to want to look a certain way. So if I'm looking at let's give an example, somebody sees Beyonce and they're like, ooh, I want a Beyonce body. But in actual fact, they are not Beyonce, so their body type, no matter what they do, is not going to become that. Or somebody looking at Tiana Taylor and looking and saying that, I'm going to go to gym 5 times a week. Because how do you then balance going to gym and keeping it a healthy relationship to just say I want to be the best version of myself, as opposed to trying to replicate what you're seeing and what you're hearing is a hot body or a hot image, size, shape, etc.?
I think, yes, you got to look at what's best for you and your body, because mostly when we speak to people that have been going to gym, and they start with that idea, I want to look a certain way, whether they're comparing to someone else or some body type that they had before, and they say, I'm going to look like this again. But what actually starts happening the more that they train is actually they start feeling better. There might not be much changes physically, but they start feeling a lot more better and start appreciating a lot more about themselves. That they can maybe go 30 minutes on a treadmill where they used to be able to only do 10 minutes.
Okay.
That is sort of where I'd like people to focus more on starting to feel better, because ultimately, as I've mentioned, body image is about how you feel. It's not about how you actually look. So slowly but surely you move towards the feelings and starting to feel better and start appreciating yourself more for those things. And instead of putting ourselves down every time we go to gym, oh, if I'm going to eat this piece of cake, I have to do 30 minutes there. It's just this negative pressure that we put ourselves under for no reasons. So just focus on how we feel, and also how we tell other people as well. When we talk about other people's bodies as well, we don't necessarily always have to say something about them as well. Just we got to talk about how we feel more than what is actually happening physically.
I like that. I like that. So as you said, so that really sums it up, that body imaging is really about how you feel, because going to gym is not necessarily that there's going to be much of a physical change. Yes, there might be, but you start feeling better about yourself as you unpack and discover how magical your body is and the things that it can achieve. And, in that last part, I know that we were saying off air that it is also very important because it has become such a culturally accepted thing, especially in people of color, that people want to make comments about people's bodies, that auntie who's going to say, "Woo, but you've gained weight." Stop it.
Yes.
Stop it.
Yes.
Stop it.
Because mostly, honestly, people know. They already know, and they're already self-conscious about certain parts of their bodies. Whether they're looking thinner, whether they're looking fatter, whether something about them is just popping or not. We don't necessarily always have to comment about it. And so, as much as I'm saying, yes, it's about how you feel about yourself, we also have this idea that it's okay for us to say something about someone else's body. And for me personally, I honestly don't like hearing it, because it doesn't matter. I already know. So let's focus on just more encouraging people to say, how are you feeling? Are you feeling good? And focus on building that more, instead of putting each other down in other ways, and make them feel more conscious. And I also just want to add that there isn't a once I have. There's also, I hear a lot of women especially saying, once I have that summer body, I will feel like this. Once I have that fit look, that six-pack, I'm going to feel this way. Please stop telling yourself that and start feeling first, and then everything else will flow.
Love that. Start a feeling first and everything else will flow. It's the only date that matters. Lunch with Khanya on Radio Bomb, the station with the mind of its own. Before I let you go, Simone, just let us know where we can contact you if we would like to be in conversation with you. I know that you have Coffee with Simone, where people can connect and just, unpack and kind of deal with their mental wellness.
Yes, absolutely. The Coffee with Simone sessions are available online as well as in person. It's just to offer a sense of guidance for someone to listen. It's not necessarily counseling. It's more just focusing on where you're at in terms of business strategies or whatever it is that you just feel like you want to unpack over coffee. So you can find me on Instagram, Simone the Dancer, as well as LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, Simone Momplé. Just Google me and DM me wherever you like. And I'd love to be in conversation with you. Thank you, Khanya.
Thank you once again, Simone Momplé, our resident contributor when it comes to our wellness every Wednesday. That's how we wrap up our Wellness Day with Simone Momplé, our resident counselor. Thank you once again, Simone, for taking the time out to share with us about body feeling as opposed to body imaging. And that is the start of taking care of yourself.